Do you think he's okay? Do you think Pete is okay?
Yeah, I honestly don't know. I'm not sure. I have observed a Pete that is one Pete and crushes it in meetings. At the same time, I've seen the secretary in more internal meetings where he is super focused on like very, in my opinion, weird details and very agitated and kind of like yelling and just nothing's good. So it's like a tale of two Petes. And I'll be honest, I'm not the person to ask about what he was like before and all that. Like, I don't know. Mm-hmm. I'm just telling you what I observed in the 90 days that I was there.
Was there like a particular point at which his agitation stepped up?
Yeah, I think, roughly it was around the time of Signalgate, maybe before when some of these leaks started.
Colin Carroll is another ousted Pentagon official speaking out after losing his job due to Pete Hegseth's extreme incompetence and now paranoia over leakers.
He was very focused on the leaks. And honestly, I think it's kind of like consumed the team a little bit. Like if you look at a pie chart of the secretary's day, at this point, 50% of it's probably leak investigation press. Like it's that, and like that can't be. That is a bad thing for America. It's a bad thing for the president's objectives. And then in order to kind of combat an image, it's, hey, we're going to go do work out with the troops. I'm a troop. As a second lieutenant in the Marine Corps, I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. Mm-hmm. The Secretary of Defense is out doing push-ups with me. As a midshipman, when he went to the Naval Academy, like, hell yes, I would have been screaming on the side too. However, I think I've matured a little bit to the point where I realize that while that is important and it's a thing to do and get out there, because it helps with recruiting, it just helps like with morale. If you're taking a half-day trip to the Naval Academy at the same time the budget is due and we really need some support here, like, come on, you got to weigh priorities. And so I don't know. I mean, when you ask if he's okay, I don't know. I'm not sure. I wish I could definitively say he's totally fine, but I don't know.
No talk about the irony of how the Fox and Friends weekend host turned defense secretary joined Trump in railing on the deep state full of leakers and anti-Trumpers looking to take him down at every turn, only then find out that his own guys are who he's giving a side eye to.
My observation from the first 90 days, and this is going to sound weird, is that we had less of a problem from like the deep state bureaucrats in the department than we did from maybe some people on our own team. And that sounds weird, but if you think about the department, the civilian workforce, I don't say they were running scared. Maybe they would come on and say that they were scared, but we were actively shaping that workforce to be proactive to what we wanted done.
Now that he's gone, do you feel like it'll be a more functional place?
I've thought through this before in the last couple of days. I'd like to hope so, but I think that there's a lot of water under the bridge at this point. This can be really hard to recover from. There is like actually a culture of kind of fear and toxicity. And, whether it was the disgruntled former employees, like it is clear to me that there are people in the department that are actively leaking and are seeing this as an opportunity. And I'm not sure how you recover from that.
There's now a culture of fear and toxicity. Again, sitting some super lib that MAGA thinks is hell-bent on handing the country over to some evil brown people. Oh, and forcing service members to wear dresses on battlefields. All that was brainless propaganda, meant to whip up fear and bigotry in order to win some votes. But now that they have to govern, this party of bros is trying to avoid imploding right in front of us.
When it comes to the economy, a mere 38% approve of his performance, and just 33% approve of his handling of inflation and tariffs.
You're right, Paul. When it gets to the economy, he is in very bad shape. And it's not only that he's in the short term in bad shape, there's also evidence in the poll that no matter, even if he gets his way on certain things like tariffs, that he's not good in the long run. There's some very deep-seated skepticism among ordinary Americans about the effect of the economy, the president's economic policies, both in the short run and the long run. I think this was a hope. I don't think it was based upon a explicit understanding of what he was going to do. They just hoped that he would do better on inflation and jobs and economic growth. And then when he came in, just the sort of chaos and the inability of the administration to explain what they're doing, I think has hurt them very much.
Now he's getting hit by Karl Rove and his whiteboard full of bad numbers as he explains why people simply hoped Trump knew what he was doing instead of actually hearing sound policy. It's shaky ground to start off with, and it's been escalated by the president's addiction to authoritarianism. Another old conservative voice points that out too.
The other case involving the Wisconsin judge is a bit equivocal in my view. An administrative warrant is not an arrest warrant. No judge would recognize an administrative warrant. So she's on the bench. There's a commotion in the hallway involving the person who is in front of her, the defendant who's in front of her, for some sort of a low-level assault and battery. She goes out to see what the commotion is, and they say, we're here to arrest this guy. And she basically says, well, you're not going to interrupt with my proceeding. We don't permit arrests in the courtroom. You can wait in the hallway, or you can wait for him outside. Let me see your arrest warrant. We don't have one. They have this administrative warrant, which is basically one ICE agent authorizing another ICE agent to detain someone. So I don't think there's a crime here. I think she has immunity. She can decide how a person leaves her courtroom. On the other hand, I understand how the feds want to make a big deal out of this. They don't like anyone, least of all judges, interfering with the orderly process of arresting people. I just think this was the wrong one for them to do. And then they showed pictures of her in handcuffs and all that kind of stuff, which is a violation of several regulations.
Andrew Napolitano went on Newsmax, sounded like a lefty afflicted with Trump derangement syndrome. He did the unspeakable maneuver of looking at the facts about their intimidation arrest of that Wisconsin judge and gave perspective instead of making over-the-top conclusions for the sake of the president's ego. And despite their slow purge of news organizations in the press briefing room, Fox News' reporter asked Caroline Levit if they're going to take the next steps down the road to solidifying their fascist state.
You guys arrested a Milwaukee County circuit judge for allegedly helping illegal immigrants get away. As you guys look at other judges, would you ever arrest somebody higher up on the judicial food chain, like a federal judge or even a Supreme Court justice?
Well, that's a hypothetical question. Again, I defer you to the Department of Justice for individuals that they are looking at or individual cases. But let's be clear about what this judge did. She obstructed federal law enforcement who were looking for an illegal alien in her courthouse. She showed that illegal alien the door to evade law enforcement officials. That is a clear-cut case of obstruction. You don't have to be a lawyer to understand that. And so anyone who is breaking the law or obstructing federal law enforcement officials from doing their jobs is putting themselves at risk of being prosecuted, absolutely.
They're being forced to repeat their intentions so many times, some of the deluded voters that thought all the jokes that they claimed were being told on the campaign trail are beginning to realize that they're exactly who the deranged types warned them about. They can't even rely on being the chosen MAGA crowd while their president punishes all the Americans that they were conditioned to hate. Because the way his authoritarianism is set up, he doesn't give a damn about them either.
The biggest problem that we have up till now is uncertainty. We have talk about tariffs, and then the tariffs are off. We have tariffs, they came into play for 3 days. They were canceled. But the constant threat of what if makes it very hard for us to plan. Food does not make sense at all. All you're gonna do is raise those costs to consumers. People have become accustomed to having all their fruits and vegetables on a year-round basis, and that is entirely due to imports. Putting tariffs on imports is only gonna limit supply, raise prices, or both.
Tamara Varga is a Trump supporter, happy with some promises kept, but nervous a big one could be broken.
I'm worried about Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security. He did say that he wasn't going to cut them, that he was just going to find the waste, and I really hope that he sticks to that.
Varga is a Tucson hero. Her food truck and candy store employ 50 people with special needs. She's renovating this restaurant to employ even more. A devout Christian, lifelong Republican, but some big changes. Varga says she no longer believes Trump's claim the 2020 election was rigged. She's now open to supporting Democrats for local offices.
Melissa Cordero is an Air Force veteran who voted for Trump once, back in 2016, and regrets it every day.
He's like crazed right now. I'm constantly going, can he do that? I'm angry because the communities that I care the most about are being attacked. The LGBTQ community, the trans community, and what's really got me angry is immigration and what's happening to deported veterans.
Cordero just visited some deported veterans in Mexico. Just learned she lost a conservation grant that was part of a DEI program. is organizing protests against Trump cuts at the Veterans Administration.
There's no one answering the phones. Mental health too. Making cuts in that area, that's like what all of us veterans need the most.
Yeah, they're turning on him. And even though every time I see one of these soon-to-be former supporters begin to recognize the very thinly veiled lies that he told them, I want to point out how obvious it was before. But it doesn't matter until the gutless politicians in Congress feel that their jobs are on the line enough to stop him. Maybe we're not that far off, but action speaks so much louder than silence.
This moment is so critical for the House and Senate GOP to get on the same page. Now, this all comes as members are coming back into town and have heard concerns from their constituents about the impact on prices by Donald Trump's policies, by his tariff policies. And I caught up with one of those senators earlier today, Senator John Cornyn of Texas, and I asked him about how his constituents are reacting to rising prices.
Well, they're concerned about the disruptive nature of this change in U.S. policy, but they're optimistic that with the 90-day pause that hopefully a zero tariff negotiation will occur.
How much concern are you hearing about high prices back home?
Well, for 4 years, we've suffered from 40-year high inflation, so the price of everything went up about 20% during the Biden years. And yes, there's been some temporary increase in prices because of the tariffs.
And the meeting that's happening right now between the Speaker of the House and Donald Trump is largely about politics. It's about the midterm campaigns of next year. And as we know, midterm campaigns don't go particularly well for a sitting president's party. And that will be one of the things that will be driving a lot of the discussion on the legislative front as well, how that will impact their chances in next year's midterms.